Слава Ісусу Христу! Слава Україні! Okay, we got the right crowd. Дякую дуже за довір'я, перш за все, в імені нашої президії. Thank you for your trust. I think we're going to have an excellent meeting today. I just want to mention that should we be speaking, I will ask you to go to the microphone. I think Hanya mentioned that because we are recording. And state your name and your organization for the record so that the secretaries can document, щоб ми могли протоколувати, хто є на місці. Я буду плинно переходити з одної мови до другої. I'll translate, or I'll freely move from one language to the other. Use your translators as needed, but I'm not going to repeat everything in two languages, trust me. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is move on to our next program. And I want to invite up to the podium, President of UCC National, Alexandra Chyczij, our president.
Доброго ранку всім. For our non-Ukrainian guests, I'm sometimes known as Alexandra, but my Ukrainian name is Lesia. So, welcome everyone. Вітаємо, bienvenue. We have had a very exciting evening last night. I want to thank our SUSC delegates for a wonderful evening that launched our cultural diplomacy at this Congress. The night of music, art, and song was truly uplifting. We also had an excellent panel on the Holodomor, which we will be commemorating next weekend. So I'm not going to drag out these opening ceremonies, but welcome to the 28th Triennial Congress, which is taking place at a great time of challenge for Ukraine, for Canada, and for our community. The discussions over the next 3 days will set the course for the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress and for our community for the next 3 years. This time will also be critical for Ukraine's defense. Ukraine, as we know, is fighting for the freedom of Europe, and Canada, we know, will continue to play a leading role in supporting Ukraine. On behalf of the UCC, I welcome the delegates who are attending the Congress and who will contribute to all of our deliberations. And I welcome our distinguished guests from whom you will hear throughout the next 3 days. I will now ask Danilos Dmitriu Stelmach to lead us in the singing of the national anthems. Danile, proszę.
Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God creep around, glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Ще верла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття молоді, усміхнеться доля. Сили гинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, загальмуєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Що тіло ми положим за нашу свободу, ми покажем, що ми браття козацького народу. Тож тіло ми положим за нашу свободу, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
I neglected to introduce Anna Tanchak, so thank you, Anna and Danilo, for a rousing anthem. I have to say it brings me to tears every time I hear it since over the last 3 years. So I would now invite His Eminence Metropolitan Ilarion, Archbishop of Winnipeg and the Central Eparchy Metropolitan of Canada, Primate of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada, and Most Reverend Bishop Andrii, Auxiliary Bishop of the Archeparchy of Winnipeg of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, to lead us in prayer.
Slava Isusu Christu. O all-wise and all-gracious our Savior, who called us to unity and love for you and for our neighbors, graciously look down on us, the participants of our Congress, grant us wisdom and unity for the good of the entire Ukrainian community and for all people of goodwill in our God-protected Canada. God bless us to work tirelessly to preserve the culture and tradition of the Ukrainian people on Canadian soil, to affirm the Ukrainian identity in our communities, and to enlighten the multicultural Canadian society about who we, the Ukrainian people, are. As the Russian aggression against the Ukraine continues, strengthen us spiritually and physically to sacrifice without selfishness for our long-suffering mother Ukraine and her people, to be an example and a leader for the entire Ukrainian diaspora in the world. God help us display the way that we all can help Ukraine. Особливо молимося до Тебе, владику миру і спокою нашого, щоб як щезає дим, та нехай щезнуть вороги наші, і як порох розсипається в ліса вітру, так нехай розвіються злі задуми знищити державу українську. Даруй Україні перемогу над ворогами і мир глибокий і непорушний, від війни та нашестя і супротивників оберігаючи. Боже великий єдиний, нам Україну і Канаду бережи. God save Canada and Ukraine. Слава Ісусу Христу!
Almighty Lord, one and the Holy Trinity, in whose wisdom we find our truest path, we gather before you in the city of Toronto, united for the 28th Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, and also marking the 85th anniversary of the organization, at a moment of profound consequence to our people and for the world. We thank you for the many blessings of this land, Canada, which has given us a home, a voice, and also the freedom of the assembly. We also hold in our hearts our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, our ancestral homeland, who today stand as a shield for the world's freedom. And we pray for their safety, their strength, and their victory. Lord, bless Ukrainian-Canadian community. Bless also friends of Ukraine here present, and also bless every participant in this Triennial Congress. Pour out your grace upon us that we may fill the great work set before us. First of all, grant us first to see the grace, to see the reality of the world. Also grant us the strong will to decide and make good decisions. Grant us the inspiration to resolve and address the great issues and challenges that lie before us, especially for our community here in Canada. Guide our internal deliberations. Remind us of the words of Canada's own statesman, Lester Pearson, who sought global peace and knew its source. He says, "How can there be peace in the world if we are not at peace with ourselves?" So grant us wisdom to heal our own divisions, to welcome the newcomer, and to build a community of unshakable unity and purpose. We also pray for those who are involved in the war in Ukraine. Lord of hosts, be with the defenders of Ukraine. Strengthen their arms, protect their families, and grant them a just victory that brings a lasting peace. Fill our hearts with unwavering resolve that we in the diaspora may be their reliable support. As our great Kobzar Taras Shevchenko prophesied in his call to action, he said, "Fight on, and you shall prevail, because God is on your side." And for all the injustices in the world, open our hearts beyond our own struggles, and let the courage we witness in Ukraine inspire us to stand for all those who are oppressed, for all those who are silenced, and for all who seek justice. Descend, O Holy Spirit, upon this Congress. Make our conversations fruitful, our resolutions righteous, and our actions transformative. May we leave this gathering not as we arrived, but as renewed and faithful servants of your will, instruments of peace, and builders of a future worthy of your name that is holy, and we glorify you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and forever and ever. Amen.
Дякую, митрополите Іларіоне і владико Андрію. In the last 3 years, during which the Ukrainian people have heroically defended the freedom of Europe from Russia's genocidal war of aggression, Ukraine has lost countless of her brave sons and daughters. They fell defending the liberty that we enjoy every single day, and they fight for a safe and peaceful future for generations of Ukrainians. As Russia continues its barbaric attacks on Ukrainian cities, towns, and villages, Ukraine has lost thousands of innocent civilians, children, women, and men, murdered by Russia only because they are Ukrainian and want to live free in their own land. Last night, there was a massive attack on Kyiv. 6 died, 35 were injured. Our Hromada has also lost many community leaders in the last 3 years, leaders who were our mentors, who inspired us to serve our community, and who inspire us still. I ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence to honor the heroes who gave their lives defending Ukraine, Ukrainian civilians murdered by Russia, and our community leaders who have left us over the last 3 years. Thank you. Вечная память. And now I would like to invite my good friend and my former member of parliament. I've lived in many ridings across Toronto. I want to invite Yvan Baker, the Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Centre, to introduce the Honourable David McGuinty, Minister of National Defence, who will speak on behalf of the Government of Canada.
Слава Ісусу Христу! Слава Україні! Я вас не чую. Слава Україні! О, краще. Добрий ранок, пані і панове. Мене звати Іван Бейкер. I'm the member of parliament for Etobicoke Centre. І мені велика честь бути сьогодні з вами сьогодні рано. І велика честь представити нашого міністра канадської охорони. Before I introduce our special guest, I just wanted to share with you a brief story, if I may. In 1991, when Ukraine declared its independence, I was very close with my grandparents, Yvan and Olena. And my Dido and Baba, they immigrated to Canada after World War II. And they, like so many of the parents and grandparents, probably of the people in this room, when they lived in Ukraine, took tremendous risks to their life and to their families for a free and independent Ukraine. So in 1991, when Ukraine declared its independence, I was with my Dido Yvan. And we were watching the news coverage on television. And as I said, my grandfather took great risks when he lived in Ukraine for a free and independent Ukraine. So you can imagine when Ukraine declared its independence, this was possibly one of the proudest days of his life. And I remember my Dido saying to me, and this was a joyous moment, we were all excited, we were all optimistic about the future. I remember him saying to me, now that Ukraine is independent, we need to continue to fight for an independent Ukraine. And I was about 13 years old at the time. And I said to my Dido, Dido, what are you talking about? Ukraine has declared its independence, the people want it, other countries are recognizing it. The battle is won, it's over. I said, Dido, you are wrong. As it turns out, I was wrong, right? In 2014, Russia invaded Ukraine twice, first in Crimea, then in eastern Ukraine, and the world got it wrong. And we can't afford to get this wrong again. I know that's why so many of you, that's why I fought so hard in 2021 and 2022 to make sure the government of Canada did everything possible, send military aid, financial aid, impose sanctions on Russia, and so much more. I used to joke that our former prime minister and some of our ministerial colleagues used to run the other way when they saw me coming down the hall because they knew that I was advocating for more support for Ukraine. The reason I share this story with you is because the man I'm about to introduce is someone who I've never had to chase down the hall. I'm proud to introduce our special guest today, Canada's Minister of Defence, David McGuinty. The minister has played a central role in strengthening Canada's defence commitments to ensure we protect Canada's sovereignty, support the men and women who serve, and ensure we achieve our commitments to our NATO partners and to our partners around the world, and this includes Ukraine. He has worked to expand military training for Ukrainian armed forces through Operation Reassurance, to accelerate delivery of equipment and support, and to ensure that Canada remains a reliable and unwavering partner of Ukraine's defense. Minister McGuinty was first elected as the Member of Parliament for Ottawa South in 2004 and has been re-elected 7 times, most recently in 2025. I wish I had a record like that. He has also served as Canada's Canada's Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Over his 2 decades on the Hill, he's served in various roles, including acting whip, House Leader of the Official Opposition, and most recently, and very relevant to the issues we're talking about today, Chair of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians. Minister McGuinty is also a highly respected member of Canada's legal community who's practiced law and worked with governments, businesses, and not-for-profits organizations worldwide. His career outside of politics includes working on behalf of UNICEF across Africa, and he served as a mentor to emerging leaders at Lead Canada and as an advisor to the Rockefeller Foundation. Minister McGuinty holds a diploma in agriculture from the University of Guelph, as well as a Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and Philosophy, both from the University of Ottawa. He also holds specialized diplomas and certificates from the Université de Sherbrooke and Harvard Law School, as well as a Master of Laws from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Minister McGuinty has been a strong voice in cabinet, in caucus, and a steadfast advocate for Ukraine on the international stage. Please join me in welcoming Canada's Minister of National Defence, David McGuinty.
Your Eminence, Archbishop, Bishop, Mr. Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the gracious invitation to address you this morning. I am honored to be here on behalf of our government, honored to be here on behalf of our Parliament, honored to be here particularly on behalf of our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who I spoke to yesterday, who sends his warmest greetings and his best wishes. I know there are some other parliamentarians in the audience. I think Senator Stan Kutcher's with us. Senator Kutcher, it's good to see you. I want to stop for a second to talk about Yvan Baker. Yvan is a parliamentarian, not a politician. Yvan knows how to work change. Yvan knows how to influence for the good. Yvan, I want to thank you. I think we should all thank you for your incredible advocacy and your relentless pursuit for Ukraine in Parliament. Thank you so much, Yvan. Thank you. We're also joined by my colleague James Bezan here this morning. James and I were elected together in 2004, and we are friends as well as colleagues. James and I sometimes disagree, but when it comes to Ukraine, we don't. There is no daylight between James and his role as the official opposition critic for defense. We keep the CAF, we keep Ukraine, we keep our priorities straight between ourselves. It's an honor to work with James. We travel together and we work together. Thank you, James. Canada's commitment to Ukraine is unwavering. It's long-standing, and it's unequivocal. And on the front line of that support, of course, is the Canadian Armed Forces. Over these past few months, I've had the great privilege of spending time with our sailors, our soldiers, our aviators, and our special operators in training environments, on bases and wings across the country, alongside our NATO allies in Europe. And I can tell you this without any form of Irish embellishment. They are extraordinary. Our service members are second to none. They're responsive and they're resourceful. They're principled and professional. They're kind and they're courageous. Not at all unlike the members of the Ukrainian Armed Forces I saw in Kyiv. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of visiting Ukraine with Prime Minister Carney. As we stood in Independence Square on Independence Day and looked at the incredibly brave, disciplined, and impressive men and women in front of us, we were both in awe at the depth of their determination, their grit, and their commitment and passion. On the train back that night to Poland, I realized I shouldn't have been surprised at all. Look at what Ukrainians have done right here and have built in Canada. Look at what they've sacrificed and what they've accomplished, carving out a life often in very harsh circumstances. And for that, Canada and the world will be forever grateful. I want to thank the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress for its long-standing leadership on issues that really matter, not just to Ukrainians, but to all Canadians. Lesia, thank you and your team for your continuing leadership. You lead a team that is a voice of confidence, of cultural stewardship, of community involvement, and of democratic purpose. Vous êtes une voix de confiance, de responsabilité culturelle, d'engagement communautaire et de vocation démocratique. Vous avez joué un rôle essentiel dans l'élaboration de la réponse nationale du Canada à l'invasion de l'Ukraine par la Russie. Vous êtes des fervents défenseurs de l'aide humanitaire, de la relocalisation et de la sensibilisation du public. You've helped Canadians understand the stakes in this war and the strength of sticking together, of solidarity. You've encouraged our sustained focus, our support, and our clarity of purpose. Russia's full-scale invasion is well into its fourth year. But its illegal occupation and destabilization of Ukraine territory goes all the way back to 2014, something I witnessed up close and personal when conducting a pre-election assessment for Washington's National Democratic Institute in 2014. Under Operation Unifier, CAF members have trained over 46,000 Ukrainian forces since 2015. Thank you. We've trained, but we've also learned a lot from the process. Since 2022, we've committed nearly $22 billion in comprehensive support, including over $6.5 billion in military assistance. Canada has also committed 50 armored combat support vehicles and delivered 46 of them, with the remainder on track for delivery this year. In August, our government announced a $2 billion military assistance package based on what Ukraine needs most, what we heard from its commanders, its Minister of Defense, and President Zelensky. It's coordinated through NATO and the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, one of the first countries in the world to commit to a $500 million PURL, P-U-R-L package, the prioritized Ukraine requirements list, was Canada. And we were proud to be there. We were proud to do that. In addition, through the immobilization of Russian assets, Canada is providing $5 billion in direct financing to Ukraine. We're supplying drone and counter-drone capabilities, including through investments in joint ventures between Canadian and Ukrainian industry, an agreement I signed just recently while there. We're supporting the procurement of NATO-prioritized equipment, including air defense and munitions, and we're sourcing large caliber ammunition through the Czech Ammunition Initiative. Building on these donations, I can announce today that Canada will be providing $100 million in small arms and ammunition and $25 million in critical medical equipment that's required on the field right now. Ces dons proviennent de partenaires industriels ici même au Canada et aideront à s'assurer que les forces armées ukrainiennes disposent de l'équipement nécessaire pour défendre leur patrie. Canada is committed to doing everything we can to support Ukraine. I think no one better embodies that commitment than Chrystia Freeland, a colleague of mine for many years, another unstoppable force with Ukrainian roots. I'm not sure what's in the DNA. Canada's new special envoy for Ukraine, we have every confidence Chrystia will bring her trademark passion and her energy to bear on the situation. A few weeks ago, I was in Brussels for the NATO Defense Ministerial meeting. I Canada's continued commitment to collective defense and security. One point particularly stuck with me. To end this war, we need to go after the money. Shadow fleets, shadow assets, economic sanctions. We need to keep and intensify the economic pressure on Russia. Going after the financing of this war will help bring it to an end. Canada also continues to serve as the framework nation for the multinational brigade in Latvia, leading the 14-nation presence defending NATO's eastern flank. We're maintaining a persistent force there of 2,200 Canadian Armed Forces personnel in Latvia through 2029, the largest sustained overseas deployment of Canadian forces in a generation. And we're accelerating defense spending quickly. In Budget 2025, we'd outlined our plan to invest over $80 billion over 5 years to defend our sovereignty. And also through Budget 2025, we're investing more into support for Ukraine. Another $4.2 billion will be made available until 2029. We're strengthening our commitment with $6.2 billion over 5 years to expand Canada's defense partnerships. That will include Ukraine. We're adding more military assistance to Ukraine, and we're increasing military training and international policy programming. We remain on track to spend 2% of GDP on defense by March 31st, a full 5 years ahead of schedule. And we're speeding up investments in the years ahead to put Canada on a path to meeting NATO's 5% defense investment pledge by 2035. From now until 2030, we will increase by 4 times our investments in defense. Part of this year's budget also includes Canada's first ever defense industrial strategy, which will help Canada strengthen our industry, better supporting Ukraine, joint ventures with Ukraine, investments in Ukraine, Ukrainian investments in Canada. Canada is also leading within the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, providing advanced fighter training for Ukrainian pilots in Canada, leading the Joint Ventures Working Group on drone co-production, supporting our armored vehicle sustainment and Leopard 2 tank repair networks, leading the Cybersecurity Working Group to support Ukraine's cyber defense and institutional resilience. Turns out Canada's pretty good at cyber, and so is Ukraine. These are areas where we are sharing and learning and mutually reinforcing each other. They're areas where Canada and Ukraine have unique strengths, where Ukraine has urgent and long-term needs. Canada stands with Ukraine in so many ways. Our partnership lives right here in the Ukrainian-Canadian community, where the UCC has cultivated a relationship rooted in people, not just policy, where language, history, and tradition are carried across generations, where dignity and identity are developed in rec centers and churches, in kitchens, and in classrooms, as surely as they're defended on the battlefield. Car forger son caractère et célébrer son appartenance sont aussi des actes de souveraineté. Et c'est ce que le CCU fait depuis des décennies. That's why you'll be happy to know that Budget 2025 advances broader priorities that matter deeply to UCC and to Ukrainian Canadians. We're strengthening community institutions, cultural, education, civic. We're supporting displaced Ukrainians who are rebuilding their lives in Canada. We're funding settlement services and language training. We're increasing mental health supports for families impacted by war. There will be many. We're investing in counter-disinformation and media literacy to protect Canadians from the scourge of foreign interference while upholding our democratic resilience. These are areas where community leadership and government partnership reinforce one another, where they integrate, and where your voice really continues to matter. Ukrainian Canadians have been shaping this nation for more than a century. You and your families have helped build farms and towns, churches and schools, but you're way, way beyond that. You have excelled in every field of endeavor in this country, every conceivable field: academia, medicine, law, accounting, business, entrepreneurship. You name it, there are Ukrainian Canadians leading it. You've served our country, strengthened our economy, and you've enriched our culture. You share our history, our heritage, and our hopes for the future. We're united in this. We're resilient together, as the maxim of your Congress expresses. Le Canada soutient l'Ukraine parce que c'est un combat pour le monde où les frontières sont respectées, où chacun décide de son propre avenir et où les démocraties peuvent s'épanouir sans crainte. It's a fight to strengthen international stability and make peace possible. It does more than reinforce our alliances and increase our national resilience. It reaffirms who we are as a country. So thank you. Thank you to the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress for your leadership and your partnership. Thank you to the Ukrainian people, to the Ukrainian Canadians here and around the world who have come together. We admire your courage and your conviction. We're inspired by your spirit and your ingenuity. We are moved by your care and your commitment to each other. It is profound. It's quite extraordinary. We will stand with you for as long as it takes. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Minister, for your and your government's steadfast support of Ukraine. And we are particularly grateful for the support that you have announced today. I'm glad to see that our DNA is contagious. I would like to now call up our distinguished guests to join me on stage for the traditional Ukrainian greeting ceremony, presentation of the korovai, bread and salt. So please, Metropolitan Ilarion, Bishop Andrii, Minister McGuinty, Senator Kucher, Ambassador Plakhotniuk, Mayor Chow, Taras Bahri, Petros Turin, and Paul Grud. Please join me on the stage. I would like to now invite Her Worship Olivia Chow, Mayor of the City of Toronto, a steadfast supporter of Ukraine and Ukrainians in Canada, to bring greetings on behalf of the city. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Those of you traveling from across Canada, welcome to Toronto. There are many leaders here, my friends. Boris, my old friend, okay. And all the members of Parliament, the minister, the elected representative, the national president, Ontario and Toronto president of UCC, of course, the bishop. For 85 years, UCC has stood for something powerful. A Ukrainian community built on courage, service, and looking out for one another. That spirit, your spirit, runs deep in our city in Toronto. Toronto is home to one of the largest Ukrainian communities anywhere outside Ukraine. You built businesses, raised families, made our city stronger. But right now, as the brutal war enters its fourth winter, I know many of you carry a heavy weight. Worry for loved ones, fear for friends, grief for all that is lost. And constantly considering what you can do. What more can you do to assist the brave people in Ukraine? Your brothers and sisters. But do know that your mayor shares your burden. I too wonder what I and the city of Toronto can do. We are worried. We share your burden because Toronto stands with Ukraine. And we will continue to fly that Ukrainian flag up at City Hall until there's victory in Ukraine. In the past, we've sent vehicles, we helped those arriving and continue to arrive from Ukraine, find shelter, we support them. And we got our Toronto children organized through our schools and our libraries to send science kit to Kiev's children so they know that we care for them from children to children. What else can we do to help them this brutal winter that is coming? I'm listening. Give me ideas. And here in Toronto, we are protecting our communities, making our city safer, more affordable, caring, protecting renters, especially new Ukrainian families, to make sure that they find good shelters, good homes, good permanent homes in the city of Toronto. It also means keeping transit affordable so that the costs don't keep rising, so that it's easier for newcomers to move around, and keeping our fares the same. It helps also feeding children in school. We feed every kid in school. It helps a family that have 2 kids about $880 per year. We want to make life affordable for newcomers in the city because we believe that is important. On Tuesday, we observed Remembrance Day a few days ago. Your community has always understood what it means to serve, from those who enlisted to fight in 2 world wars, and even when this country failed them, to those supporting Ukraine's, they continue to enlist. And that bravery is seen right now in Ukraine. You embodied the Toronto I believe in, a city where we don't just talk about values, we live them, where when someone needs help, we show up, where courage isn't just remembered once a year, it's practiced every day. Your community has taught Toronto what resilience looks like, what solidarity means, what it costs to defend freedom, and why it is worth it. Thank you for that. Thank you for making our city stronger, braver, and more compassionate. Enjoy this Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, for your sincerity, your care, and true empathy for our community. Thank you. I would like to now invite His Excellency Andrii Plakhotniuk, Ambassador of Ukraine to Canada, to bring greetings on behalf of the government of Ukraine.
Honorable Minister McGuinty, Honorable Senator Kutcher, dear members of Parliament, Mr. Baker, Mr. Bezan, Your Worship, Madam Mayor, Your Eminence Metropolitan Ilarion, Bishop Andrii, and dear Madam President of UCC National Congress, Alexandra Chyczij, distinguished guests and participants of this very, very important event. I have profound honor on behalf of my president, upon his instruction, to read his greetings to delegates and participants of the 28th Triennial Congress of Ukrainians of Canada. I will read in Ukrainian, and I think that we'll have translation in English. Дорогі українці Канади, шановні делегати та учасники 28-го трирічного Конгресу українців Канади. Радий звернутися до вас у день проведення наймасштабнішої події для українців у Канаді. Сьогодні, коли український народ героїчно протистоїть російському ворогу та відстоює демократичні цінності, ваша підтримка та єдність є надзвичайно важливими. Адже під час нинішнього заходу одна із найпотужніших українських громад у світі визначатиме свої майбутні кроки задля допомоги Україні та підтвердить нерозривний зв'язок із нею. Хочу окремо наголосити на глибокому українському корінні в Канаді. Перші українці Іван Пилипів та Василь Єленяк прибули на канадську землю 134 роки тому. Саме вони заклали підвалини мільйонної української спільноти в Канаді. Через майже 50 років, у листопаді 1940 року, у Вінніпезі було створено Комітет українців Канади, пізніше Конгрес українців Канади, організацію, що об'єднала громаду в найтяжчі роки світової війни. Вже тоді ви стали рушійною силою рішень,
які змінювали історію. Завдяки вашій праці Канада стала першою у питаннях щодо України. Так, в Едмонтоні в 1983 році було вперше закарбовано правду про Голодомор шляхом встановлення пам'ятника його жертвам. Пізніше, у 2008 році, Канада однією з перших визнала на законодавчому рівні Голодомор геноцидом українського народу. Канада першою серед держав Західного світу визнала незалежність України у 1991 році. Саме у Канаді були надруковані перші банкноти української гривні. Українці Канади завжди гордились своєю ідентичністю. Ще задовго до незалежності України ви піднімали синьо-жовтий прапор та вдягали вишиванки, поширюючи українську культуру. Згадаймо 1976 рік, Олімпійські ігри в Монреалі, півфінал футбольного турніру. Молодий українець Данило Мигаль вибіг на футбольне поле у вишиванці із синьо-жовтим стягом у руках та виконав гопак. Ви ніколи не боялися демонструвати український дух та прагнення свободи. На той час цей прапор був заборонений у нашій країні. Але того дня на канадській землі український прапор промовив гучніше за будь-які заборони. Свободу неможливо заборонити, а ідентичність знищити. Коли у лютому 22-го року Росія розпочала повномасштабну війну проти України, Канада знову була серед перших, хто простягнув руку допомоги. Першою країною Групи 7, яка законодавчо закріпила механізм конфіскації російських заморожених активів для подальшої передачі на відновлення України, а також оголосили заборону імпорту російської нафти. Канада також однією з перших передала Збройним силам України танки «Леопард-2», які стали символом єдності та солідарності міжнародних партнерів у протистоянні нашої держави російському агресору. Ці надзвичайно важливі кроки не лише політичні рішення, це прояв довіри, яку ви, українці Канади, будували поколіннями. Ви були поруч з Україною, коли про неї не можна було говорити вголос, і ви залишаєтесь поруч, коли вона знову бореться за своє існування. Закликаю кожного з вас продовжувати діяти так само рішуче та активно. Саме зараз, як ніколи, нам потрібна єдність, єдність українців у світі, щоб продовжувати цю боротьбу разом. Важливо, щоб кожен голос українця в Канаді залишався голосом правди про Україну. Разом ми сильні. Користуючись нагодою, вітаю від імені всього українського народу Конгрес українців Канади з 85-ю річницею від дня заснування та щиро дякую за ваше служіння Україні. Нехай ця єдність між Україною та Канадою залишається прикладом для світу, як довіра, що витримує час і випробування. Ваша сила у єдності, ваша спадщина у діях, ваша роль історична. Слава Україні! Володимир Зеленський, президент України.
Дякую, Ваша Екселенція. Прошу передати нашу щиру подяку президенту Зеленському. And now I would like to call upon a fellow Ukrainian-Canadian, James Bezan, to bring greetings on behalf of Her Majesty's loyal opposition.
Дякую, Alexa. Добрий день. Reverend Fathers, Mr. McGuinty, Senator Kuchar, MP Baker, Your Excellency, Your Worship, Mayor Chow, friends, and ladies and gentlemen, it's always great to be here at your triennial conference, the 28th, celebrating 85 years of the UCC. I'm honored to be bringing greetings on behalf of His Majesty's loyal opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, and my Conservative colleagues in Parliament. I want to thank Mr. McGuinty for your very kind remarks, as well as your announcement you made today. As everyone knows, Conservatives support all the efforts that we're making to support Ukraine in this brutal war that's being waged by Putin and his Russian barbarians. UCC has been at the front of that through their strong advocacy and working with the government and working across party lines, and to ensure that the efforts that are being undertaken in Ukraine are supported by the government of Canada. I want to thank each and every one of you who have stepped up through UCC and its affiliate organizations across this country to raise money, to make material donations. You've opened up your homes, you've opened up your wallets, and you've been helping out so many displaced Ukrainians who are right in Canada right now and among us here today. So thank you for being so generous and faithful and patriotic for Ukraine and for Canada, exemplifying the best of our shared values. Where's our Manitoba crew from UCC, Manitoba, UCC, Winnipeg? Put up your hand, stand up, take a wave. Thanks. You know, as a member of Parliament for Selkirk Interlake Eastman, I get to work very closely with each and every one of you. I want to give a special shout out to Joanne Lodowansky for her recognition that she just received from the Yzvita Foundation for her enduring leadership over the very many years that she's been president of UCC Manitoba, and making sure that our chapter has been working so hard in helping resettlement, helping with language training, helping with job placement, and finding those donations that are so desperately needed. So Joanne, congratulations. It was well-deserved recognition. I also want to just mention that as we're getting here close to the end of November, we know that Holodomor commemoration is coming up. I want to thank especially UCC, but Canada Ukraine Foundation for the incredible work that they've been doing in Holodomor awareness and making sure that our youth in all our schools, adding to the curriculum that the Holodomor was a genocide. And we have to continue to raise that awareness if we want to ensure that we don't allow history to repeat itself. And so I was proud to bring forward the legislation back in 2008 that was passed with the support of Boris and others to ensure that we made that official recognition that the great famine in Ukraine in 1932-33, the Holodomor, was an act of genocide by Joseph Stalin and his communist thugs. Stalin failed to Russify Ukraine. Vladimir Putin will fail to Russify Ukraine. The incredible spirit and independence of Ukraine and the Ukrainians will live on. You cannot extinguish their patriotism. You cannot extinguish the Ukrainian culture. You cannot extinguish the Ukrainian Christian religion. We will always continue to stand together to ensure that this brutal dictatorship out of Moscow is not successful in its unjust war. I was proud to be part of the Conservative government under Stephen Harper, who started Operation Unifier, started Operation Reassurance to help Ukraine, to help our NATO allies to stand in the face of this Russian aggression. And as Conservatives today, we continue to support Ukraine in all its efforts. We've been calling for the provision of more lethal weapons, provision of the RadarSat-2 images. It was Pierre Poilievre who actually led the charge to donate our 83,000 CRV-7 rockets to Ukraine. And I thank the government for, last count I saw was over half of them have already been donated to Ukraine. They've been carefully inspected to ensure that they're safe to ship, and they've been put in the hands of the Ukrainian military so they can fight back against the Russians. We need to continue to increase our production of artillery shells on that 155 so that we can continue to provide the ammo for Canada as well as Ukraine and our allies to ensure that we're ready and that they can continue to fight back with the bombardment that the Russians are leveling against Ukraine, as we just witnessed again last night. We also called for the donation of our used light armored vehicles, our Coyotes and Bezans. It's disappointing that the Armatech contract was going to send 25 refurbished Coyotes, LAV-2s to Ukraine was canceled. But we encourage the government to continue to look at donating those vehicles to Ukraine. In our conversations with Ukrainian parliamentarians, they're saying, send over what we're not using. Send them to us, we'll fix them, we'll make use of them. It might take one to put two in the field if they have to cannibalize one piece of equipment to make another piece work. Ukrainians have proven that they are industrious and innovative. All you have to do is look at the drone warfare and how they've advanced hybrid war. Budget 2025 did make a number of commitments to the Canadian Armed Forces, and as the Shadow Minister of National Defence, we support those investments. It's badly needed. And it also announced that there's going to be a number of our military fleets are going to be retired. So instead of paying somebody and contracting scrap yards to take apart our older fleets, let's donate them to Ukraine. Let them use them. By taking those armored vehicles, whether it's retiring the rest of the Leopard tanks, whether it's retiring the howitzers as we buy new howitzers for Canada, whether it's more armored vehicles or even some of the ships and aircraft, let's give them to Ukraine where they can make use of them now while we replace our fleets here for our Canadian Armed Forces. So we know that there's a lot that needs to be done. And I appreciate the sanctions that were announced yesterday by the Government of Canada. I have a private member's bill that will start debate at the end of this month, Bill C-219, which will strengthen Canada's sanctions regimes even more. It's called the Sergei Magnitsky International Anti-Corruption and Human Rights Act. It's about making sure that we are better coordinated between SEMA and the Sergei Magnitsky Law, which I brought forward in 2017. And it will also make sure that we're better aligned with our allies and how we bring forward sanctions. But more importantly, it makes sure that the name Sergei Magnitsky, who was a Russian freedom fighter, who fought against corruption, who tried to hold the Putin regime to account, and was, of course, imprisoned and jailed and tortured and killed for it. We want to make sure that Sergei Magnitsky's name is synonymous with banning corrupt foreign officials and those who are committing gross human rights violations. And it sends a strong political message to Vladimir Putin and his corrupt allies that Canada and our partners will not stand for these ongoing abuses of human rights around the world. Bill C-219 does a number of new things. One, it requires the minister to report on how the Government of Canada is advancing human rights around the world and listing political prisoners who are being held across the world. It will, for the first time, define transnational repression and hold to account those states who are going beyond their borders to intimidate, coerce, and threaten their citizens that are here in Canada and in other democratic allied nations. It will ban immediate family members of those who are sanctioned. So when we sanction someone like a Russian oligarch, they can't hide their families or their wealth or their girlfriends in Canada. Immediately, they'll all be banned. We have to close the loopholes, and this is one way to do that. It'll require the government to table names in the House of Commons of everyone, all names of individuals and entities and countries that are being sanctioned. It provides more skills to the RCMP and to FinTrack to properly police and ensure that our sanctions are being followed and enforced. And it gives the opportunity for parliamentary committees to hear from diaspora communities and others of who should be added to the sanctions list and report that back to the House, which would then require the government to report back to Parliament. And it also provides a timeline for the forfeiture of frozen assets. All you have to do is look at the big white Antonov plane sitting at the end of the runway at Pearson's International and wonder, when is that going to finally be liquidated and those dollars passed on to Ukraine? So this will require a 12-month timeline that the minister will have to act on the forfeiture of those frozen assets so that they benefit Ukrainians or the victims or the families who have been the target of the atrocities being committed by Vladimir Putin, by the Iranian regime, by the communist regime in Beijing. Those are the things that we have to continue to work on. And it will also revoke broadcasting licenses of entities that are sanctioned, like Russia today. As I said earlier, Joseph Stalin tried to Russify Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is attempting to do that again. We cannot let history repeat itself. We have to make Ukraine stronger. They are the front line, fighting for democracy, fighting for human rights, and fighting for territorial integrity. Their fight for justice is our fight. And so by making Ukraine stronger, by working together, Ukraine will be successful and victorious. Slava Ukraini! Дякую.
Thank you, James, for your many years of friendship and support for our community. Дякую. We have been honored to greet so many distinguished guests this morning, but before we close, I would like to invite Ambassador Plakhotniuk for a very special presentation.
Dear friends, I have another important mission to perform today, once again on behalf and upon instruction of my president, a very responsible, a very solemn occasion for me to present state declarations of the president of Ukraine, of the Ukrainian state, to distinguished members of today's event. And I will start reading the motivation and naming these distinguished representatives. And I will take into consideration the principle of seniority when it comes to state declarations. So it's my profound honor to announce that for a significant personal contribution to strengthening interstate cooperation, supporting the state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and promoting the Ukrainian state worldwide, President, by his decree, awarded with the State Declaration Order of Yaroslav the Wise, 4th grade, Mr. James Bezan, Member of the Parliament of Canada. By decree of the President of Ukraine,
Volodymyr Zelensky for outstanding personal merits in strengthening interstate cooperation, supporting the state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and for significant contribution to promoting the Ukrainian state worldwide. Mr. Boris Bzhezniewski is awarded with State Decoration Order Yaroslav the Wise, 4th grade. І ще один важливий, one more important announcement. By decree of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, for significant personal contribution to strengthening interstate cooperation, supporting the state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and promoting the Ukrainian state worldwide, Member of Parliament, Mr. Yvan Baker, is awarded with State Decoration Order Merit, 3rd grade. And once again, distinguished friends, from all of us, from President of Ukraine, from government of Ukraine, from Ukrainians living here in Canada, living in Ukraine and worldwide, our most heartfelt words of gratitude for supporting us, for standing with us, for your everyday work, for your all initiatives, be it small or big, it really doesn't matter. What matters most, that they are changing the life and the situation on the ground. They're saving lives of people. Together we are strong. Thank you again for standing with us. And Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Ambassador, and congratulations, James, Boris, and Ivane. Slava vam! So this concludes our opening ceremonies, and I turn it over to our chair now to instruct you on what comes next. Дякую.